And now for more on the story, we're pleased to be joined by tonight's esteemed panel. First, Skyping in from Utica, New York, our friend John Zogby. John is the senior partner at John Zogby Strategies. He's also the director of the Keenan Center for Entrepreneurship at his alma mater, Lemoyne College. And he is the author of the new book, We Are Many, We Are One, Neo-Tribes and Tribal Analytics in 21st Century America. Meantime, Skyping in from beautiful rural Virginia, presidential historian Craig Shirley. Craig, of course, the author of Last Act, The Final Years, and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan. Gents, we always appreciate your time on Newsmax Prime. And in discussing foreign policy today, it was a twofer for Mr. Trump, not only critical of the policy, but critical of Hillary Clinton. Let's look and listen.
With one episode of bad judgment after another, Hillary Clinton's policies launched ISIS onto the world stage. She also lacks the mental and physical stamina to take on ISIS and all of the many adversaries we face.
Craig Shirley, though Mr. Trump has been criticized in this campaign, today it seems to me it was out of the textbook. It was calm. Yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
sir.
It was, JD. I think for the first time, Donald Trump may have delivered a speech in which he finally broke through and got the attention of the American people. It was concise, it was well written, it was well delivered. The line about Hillary Clinton not being physically and up to the task, I think it was gratuitous. I would not have included that. A lot of the liberal commentators will latch onto that and use that to try to deter attention from the speech. But overall, I would say I would give him a B+ over an A- for content and delivery.
John, are you with Craig on the notion that that criticism of Hillary and her stamina will be what the mainstream tries to come back and bite Mr. Trump with?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the Main Street is ready to pick up on it, although maybe they should. You know, you're just starting to get leaked out some more specified stories about Hillary Clinton's health. And if they are anywhere near as serious as some of the blogs are suggesting, it could be a game changer. I think given where the Trump campaign has been, it was probably, which is mired in some problems, it was probably a decent segue for him to get into that subject. So I disagree with Craig this time.
Well, this is news that we need to keep an eye on. Hillary's health now emerging as an issue. Speaking of Mrs. Clinton, she had a little company today campaigning with Vice President Joe Biden in Scranton, PA. Here is Vice President Biden going after Donald Trump.
Ladies and gentlemen, does he have any idea the adverse consequences these outlandish comments have on our allies, our friends, and the physical safety of our troops? Trump is already making our country less safe.
All right, so we see Joe there, and Craig, there he is in shirt sleeves. Are Democrats kind of kicking themselves saying, man, we needed Biden at the top of this ticket?
Well, you know, I mean, we all three of us been in politics a long time, and how many times has that run a campaign or a candidate or seen a situation like this, and we always look at the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And, you know, and if Biden had run, it may have resurrected all the old stories about plagiarism and misstatements and false recollections, all those things. He might be just as damaged as Hillary is right now. So, you know, who's to say? We always want what we can't have. And right now, Democrats can't have Biden. So they look at him in contrast to Hillary and they say, gee willikers, if we'd only run him. On the other hand, Republicans look at Trump and they're looking at the other candidates and say, gee willikers, if only we nominated Scott Walker. But the fact is that Donald Trump is the nominee, Hillary Clinton is the nominee, and these are the choices the American people are had. None of these candidates is perfect. They're all flawed. They're all human beings.
Let us go to the phones, gentlemen, and at 1-877-NEWSMAX from the crucial state of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia to be exact, is where we find John. John, welcome to Newsmax Prime.
Oh, JD, thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Something's been bugging me. The Democrats can't be honest with themselves. And how, if she gets elected, how are we going to know when she's telling us the truth? Now, on the other hand, what's been bugging me is She keeps on Trump about his taxes. Why don't he turn around and say, look, I'll show you my taxes when you show us your speeches from Wall Street? They seem to die out.
Well, that's an interesting approach. Let me turn to the self-identified Democrat on our panel, John Zogby. John, you hear John from Philadelphia lament the Democrats in terms of being able to deal with Hillary and her ethical shortcomings. And I got to tell you, he offered a pretty good counterpoint on the tax returns, did he not?
He did, you know, and not to pile it on Hillary. The fact of the matter is that she's still not trusted and still intensely disliked. And the fact is that she, at this stage of the game, she still hasn't been able to neutralize that sentiment. And that's why they shouldn't go about measuring the drapes in the White House yet. I think, as I wrote last week, Donald Trump is down, but he's definitely not out. But as for Hillary, that is the argument in a nutshell. If you want to go after transparency, where's the transparency on your end?
And as we continue with the theme of Donald Trump and what he's been saying, you know, over the weekend, he just can't resist going back for some more pot shots at the media. Let's look and listen.
I'll tell you honestly, I'm not running against crooked Hillary Clinton. I'm running against the crooked media. That's what I'm running against. So I put down failing at New York Times. The newspaper's going to hell. Maybe we'll start thinking about taking their press credentials away from them.
Now, gentlemen, the Wall Street Journal responds to this, a story that we featured on our website, Newsmax.com, telling the GOP nominee, quote, straighten up or quit the race. Craig Shirley, we know that media bashing really plays to the Republican base, but is it time for Trump just to keep Hillary firmly in his rhetorical sights and forget about complaining about the press?
JD, there's a way to make the argument while making a psychic connection to the American people is that big media alone going after the New York Times is meaningless to the average American voter. Look, the reason you run for president is what you're going to do for the American people, and you need to use what precious little time you have in front of a microphone to make that psychic connection to the majority of voters. What are you going to do for them? Is that what he needs to do if he wants to rail against the media? He's got to make big media a part of the big culture of corruption of big government and big Wall Street and big corporations, and that they work together to take, as they did with the case of TARP, to take $700 billion out of the backside of middle America and pay off corrupt bankers and brokers on Wall Street to then give to corrupt lobbyists to pay off corrupt politicians. But you've got to make it part of a larger oligarchic narrative in that the threat to bigness inevitably leads to corruption and the diminution of personal freedoms. But that's the argument he has to make. Going after the New York Times is meaningless. Going after corrupt bigness is meaningful.
All right, let's go back to the phones now at 1-877-Newsmax. Checking in tonight from Grand Rapids, Michigan, it's Pat. Hi, Pat.
Hi. Yeah, that was a great comment. His speech today was wonderful. This threat of what many people consider an invasion of non-vetted Muslims is a major undercurrent through all the population. People aren't stupid. We can see what's going on in Nice, France, Orlando, Florida. And if Trump will just stay on the economy, on this very real threat. I've experienced myself in London when they tried to blow up the train again 2 weeks after the first time, 2005.
Right, and your point is he needs to stick with that, right, Pat? The economy, national security, and immigration. Let me turn to John Zogby about this. The tough talk about immigration, perhaps that is the greatest separation between the Republican elites and Donald Trump, indeed with the Democratic elites too. Final 30 seconds on the value of Trump returning to immigration.
I think it's worked for him, and so you stick with what works for you. The expose that part of the campaign is over, I totally agree with Craig. What are you going to do for me? What have you done for me? And what are you going to do for me? Now what he has to do is stick with the message that he came out with today. Not saying that I personally agree with it, but what I am saying is that it was focused and it was prescriptive. That's what he needs to do in order to be president.
And gentlemen, what you have done for us is to engage in a great discussion. John Zogby from Utica, New York, Craig Shirley from the rolling hills of rural Virginia. Gentlemen, we thank you very much. When we come back, a new bushwhacker, I'll explain that. And also, we'll hear from my old colleague Michael Patrick Flanagan as we discuss Mr. Trump's speech.